Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is the Whiteport Sketch to Code BMAD Method expansion pack. That's a lot. So, but let's start from the beginning. So I'm a designer. I've been doing UX since 1999. And I have always been interested in methods and how to do things better. And quite early in my career, I started to work with hand-drawn sketches. I noticed how brilliant it was to draw something and then get feedback, not on the fidelity of the sketch, but on the actual idea I was sketching. So that part was very rewarding. And then I thought about different ways of explaining these sketches. So I did different solutions to do that. It's always complicated to have the sketch and then you want to describe what's going on in the sketch. So I did some of my own platforms to do that. I tried with different kinds of documentation methods. And then I realized that, well, developers don't really read specifications. Then, 2012, around there, it gets more and more popular with agile development. And suddenly the development team is in front of a whiteboard every morning. So it's better for me to just show them the sketch and then tell them what I want the sketch to do. And then I tell people. So my work pretty much is to draw a sketch, talk about it with the client, and talk about it with developers, and then talk about it with different stakeholders, and then talk about it with the users, and then maybe redraw it, and then start this over again. So this whole thing with the specification has kind of not been in fashion for quite some time. But now, literally 20 minutes ago, with the introduction of AI, can you imagine who is caring a lot for a product specification? AI agents. So suddenly I'm right back to square one again, where I realized that description, the specification, where I want to go with the product is extremely valuable to have written down, to have in written form, right? Now, as I see it, I have always having this issue with where to present your design. It seems like designers, they have their own kind of, ways of working with design, and then developers, they have a completely different way of relating to their work. And it could work for a long time. Designers was so important in the process of creating a product so that we could afford to have special rooms and special way of talking and special ways of presenting our work. And then developers were kind of invited there and held court. And then developers went back to their place, and we didn't see much of what was going on. So basically, we have developed two different separate worlds. So we have developers in GitHub, and we have designers in Figma, and then we kind of visit each other's maybe. Now, so BMAD method is a set of agent instructions that mimics or takes the role of a whole complete agile development team. So it has an orchestrator that takes care of the different agents. So if you want to know something about the agents, you ask the orchestrator. And then they have an analyst that will work early in the project to create project briefs and stuff like that. And then we have the UX expert that takes the project brief and makes interface specifications. And then we have also a Scrum Master that takes everything and breaks it up into stories and epics. And then we have a developer agent that develops the thing, and a QA agent that will test it all in the end. And the idea, the most important thing why this is done like this is because of the context window of the AI agents, because you have a limited amount of knowledge that you can have in your agent at every single moment. And by developing the different agents with tasks, you can limit the instruction set that they have, free up more of the context window, do a part of the work and save it as a document. And then you kill that process, open up the next one, and you take the product that you created and use that as a prompt for the next stage. So by dividing up the work in different sections, the agents does a far better job of generating things. Compared to if you would have just, AI in general, and then you give a prompt like, make me a system that blah, 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 and then it goes away and start developing things. Yeah. How does this relate to your experience so far?
I'm thinking about, I watched Sean Grow from OpenAI talking about, the talk was called The New Code, and he was talking a lot about that specifications and the art of making specifications is what like that's the valuable skill in the future.
Yeah, I actually think I saw that one again. Would you mind finding that one and dropping it in the chat for us?
Yes.
That would be very valuable. And he is on something. Because if we now go and talk about, love coding, vibe coding, this whole idea with one prompt to make an app, I think it's ridiculous. And the reason for that is that every UX designer knows that there is 500 ways of designing a system, and 3 of them works, and the other 490 something is going to be just trash. If you let the AI make the design decisions, you have no idea what's going to happen. And even if it does a very, very good job, when you prompt directly to the code, that means that the code is basically where you save your work. And the problem with this is that AI is awesome to generate code. And that we see when we do our first prompt in a vibe coding project. You get something fantastic and it looks amazing and it's like almost done. And as soon as you want to change something, you have to like hammer with a prompt after prompt to get it to like move sideways from what it has generated. And in the end, when you open it up and see how it works, it's like trash underneath. Because if you want to change something in the code, it's like if you have a document and then you have a printer, you want to write the document and put the intelligent work in the document. And then you want to use the printer to kind of get it out so you can put it in an envelope and send it. Vibe coding is like you print it once and then you cut up the printout and pasting it all together again in order to do your changes. So he is definitely onto something that now when it's no problem producing code, the specification is the new code. And my humble addition to that with being more specific with the actual design process. So this is an expression of that. So I think that's where we're going to end up. For me personally, as a designer, of course, I feel behind. I mean, I felt behind before I started doing this because, I have 25 years experience as a usability consultant, and suddenly somebody makes a prompt and replace me. When I found the BMAD method and started to make my own product, I realized that now I'm suddenly not behind. I'm actually in the bleeding edge of development. Because what we see, there was a big study coming out from OpenAI also that concluded that people are using AI as a thinking partner. People do not go to AI to generate a new book like from scratch. Write me a book, and then they have the book, and then they sell the book. What they do is that, I have some thoughts about training that I want to share with people. Here's my thoughts. Help me tell it tell the story smarter, right? Or I want to write a book about training. What should go into a book about training? And then I start the discussion. So AI as a thinking partner makes perfect sense. So I have been forced to rethink my contribution to the value process in a project. So imagine now, as a designer, I need to be more valuable, and I need to use AI to be more valuable for my clients and for my teammates. One way that I was forced to develop when I found BMAD Method was to move into GitHub, right? So with the BMAD Method and with the Whiteport sketch to code, it starts with you creating a GitHub repository for your project. Yeah. And then you stay in GitHub and you present the design work, you present all the documentation, and you do everything you need to do in GitHub. And then you are right there in the middle where the magic happens. You're stepping out of the environment specially designed for designers, and now you're stepping into the place where the developers and the code lives, which I think is a great leap for all designers. I can now send things right to where it belongs. If I export an image, I can put it where it belongs. I don't have to mail it to a developer to do it, or I don't have to save it in Figma for a developer to come into Figma and export it and so on. So being in GitHub and deliver my work is like brilliant. It's very ugly though. So it's like painfully ugly when I work on the things that I'm delivering. Yep. The second thing, and this is actually far more important, is that me as a designer in this framework, I need to work in the IDE. So I work in a development tool. And I use Cursor, but there is plenty more. So that's really, and it looks like what you see right here in front of you. It's like only text, and it's painfully ugly. But if we get through the initial shock, I talked to a designer in the US that says that, well, if you send the GitHub repo to me, I'll get git-faced. So designers get really not happy when you have to work with coding tools. Well, too bad for them. Now it's time to grow. Adapt or die, right? So what's going on here is, to the left, you have a file window. It is actually going to show you the folders that you have checked out from Git on your desktop. So what you see here, that I have a project that I'm going to use as a demo called Dog Week. It's an app for dog owners that I'm working on. And then the frameworks, my own expansion pack, and then BMAD Method repo. So here is the files I'm using. In the middle, you will see a text editor, a code editor. I don't use it for code. I use it to create documentation. And it's not possible to see the formatting, so you have to read the formatting. You know, it's like Matrix. In the right here, you will see where I interact with the agents. So basically, the right column, that's a little small ChatGPT in itself. And then I ask something, and the agent then creates documents, and it saves files, and it manipulates things here to the left. And every time I ask it to change something, it comes up so I can see the changes. And I can approve or I can reject. So if I'm going to start one of the agents, the UX expert agent, so what happens now is that it goes out and it looks at what I have added, and it sees that I have a project here. It's now going to go and do an analysis of everything that is saved in this project, all the documents that I've created. And from here, I don't need the agent to remember anything from before, because everything is saved in the documents, right? So it's a fresh new context window, and I can start working on it. And I don't even need to use the most expensive models here. I can use quite cheap models, like, which is fantastic. It's affordable, and I think I was working like almost full time for a week for like $20 or something. So when you're not generating code, this becomes really inexpensive. What you see here is that it has now done analysis of where we are in the project, and I'm ready to continue working. The first thing you need to remember is that this is free and open source. If you don't like something, or if you want to do something else, or you have some other idea of how your design process is going to be, you just tell the agent to change the instructions, right? It has templates, and it has agent instructions. It has formatting guides. There is a whole bunch of things we can do with these agents to mold how they work. So that's the first thing to remember. Now, in the docs folder is where we're going to find the non-code artifacts. So the project brief is done with the analyst agent. It's not going to, take a prompt and start walking. It's going to ask questions. So it's about 40 questions that it now generates. It's not specific questions I have inputted. I ask it to actually think about what's the best question is for the project you want to do, and it will ask you about 40 questions about the product you want to make. And you answer those questions as best you can, and what comes out is something absolutely brilliant. It's really, really good. This is Claude Code that we use, and it's fantastic to understand a product and how it works. And then also I have asked it to break out the main features. So for example, we want to have Google login, email, sign up, and stuff. And then not only does it tell me how it's supposed to be done, it also tells me how it should be implemented, and it goes and gets code snippets and defines exactly how I should do the integration with that particular service.
How does it work when you start? Like when you start from scratch, you start with just a blank slate, and then the first thing you do is ask the analyst to start creating a product brief together with you.
Exactly. And it instructs you on where to start, and it asks you what you want to build, and you say, well, I want to do an app for dog owners, and I say what's in my mind, and then it starts asking me questions, right? So it's truly human in the loop, AI as a thinking partner. Also, we have content guidelines, because this is something that I also realized in my kind of identity crisis here a few months ago. Like, who needs a designer 2025 kind of self-reflection thing. It was like, what can I do with AI? And something that I can do is that I can actually produce copy for the whole product with the help of AI. Maybe it's not perfect, but I can do it, and I can do it in multiple languages. So I can do all the error texts that needed in the different fields that I'm going to design, which is amazing, because now I don't need to give it to a copywriter and then get it back. I just get it instantly back. So it's a very important part of the experience. Yep. Let's have a look at how it then looks when I post it into GitHub. Now we are in GitHub, and here you see the same folders as you see in Cursor. I go into the docs folder, and then I go to the product brief folder, and then I go to the product brief. So now it looks a little bit more readable. Cool thing here is that you can now change the page by just clicking on this little pen over here, which is perfect for customers to go in and change things, change copy or whatever. The product brief then tells me what kind of product I'm doing. Yep. What is not included in the BMAD method is the target group analysis, the things that we do with personas and stuff like that. So I added that. So after I've done my product brief, I now go into trigger mapping. And I don't know if you remember effectstyrning, impact mapping back in the days. Yeah. I've used a brief version of that I call trigger mapping. So I use then trigger mapping in order to find a nice, simple, straightforward way of presenting the business needs, the product, the users, and what the users want to do and what the users want to avoid. This is super important because based on these factors, for example, copy will be produced. So if I'm going to put something on a start page to sell the whole thing, then I want the most important business goal to be presented to the most important target group, delivering on what they want to do most of all and what they want to avoid most of all. You see? So this model is like super, super useful. Even if you have a very extensive target group analysis work that is done previously to this, it's really good to kind of boil it down to, okay, so what's the deal here? And then we have persona descriptions. It is absolutely brilliant in the art of creating personas. If I, for example, want to add a paragraph about their personal fitness, and then the agent goes through each and every one and adds this section. So it's not only doing a brilliant job here, it's also doing it in many different files, and it does a really good job with that as well. So
I'm wondering, are these personas generated by AI or do you integrate your user research into them?
So what I have done here is I have told them what kind of user groups I'm looking for, and the AI comes up with the actual details. And then, of course, like always with AI, I review and I give feedback. So I work it so it comes up with great things, and then I sharpen it. So now we know who is going to use the software, and then the next step in this process is for me to start exploring the scenarios. And this is something that I have done like forever and ever, where I start with drawing something by hand. So here's the start page. The headline me and the AI came up with when we were analyzing the personas. So every walk on time, every time. So that's something that we generated together. When I'm coming to this phase, that's when it starts getting really interesting, because I can have a mental picture. And me personally, I use OneNote to do sketches by hand. Of course, I'm using cut and paste, so I don't have to draw everything. But I might have an idea of what I want to draw. And I draw that. And then I upload the sketch. And AI will read my handwriting. It will take care of all the different sections. It will tell me, oh, we have this section and that section and the other section. And it identifies that we have a button, and it identifies that we have a text, and it writes the text based on my instructions. But even more important, I can ask it, what should this page involve? What should I have on a start page? And it will instruct me on, best practices in a landing page or whatever. What kind of fields should you have when you add the dog to the family? Well, I don't know, a breed is how it's described, apparently. I thought I was going to use the word race, but AI suggested breed. Thinking partner theme is very apparent now. When I start with the start page, I talk with the agent about the start page, and then it helps me in, drawing it. I upload it. I get feedback on the validity of the sketch. And then also, what I also ask it to do, I ask it to identify every single object on the screen and give it a name. And this is done by the AI without me having to come up with everything. Because now when we have a name on everything, that means that it has a name here. It has a name in Figma when I do the final design. It has a name in the front-end code, and it has a name in the database. This was a game changer when I introduced that into the system. But also, as soon as I have an object on the screen that is going to be reused, let's say the language selector, then it's going to break it out and create a component. And every time I have a button, then that is going to be added from a component library into a design system, right? So you generate the design system from the first sketch, and then you add each object that you have presented. And then in each part of the design system, I can then get it to give instructions on how this field should look, how it should act, the error codes, and everything that goes into that. So I also made a little design system guide. And this was done with one prompt. So now I know that this is very rudimentary as a design system, but the important thing here is we know what things we need to design in Figma later, and then we can name our layers in Figma according to the same system as we are using in the specification. And then when we run the Figma MCP, it will take the right component and put it in the code. So we have this first page, and I ask the AI to make a complete specification, and this needs to be super detailed. It's readable, but it's super detailed. And here you see English and Swedish, how these different components are supposed to be made, the hero images, how it's supposed to be acting on the page, and then on it goes. Let's go to the sign-in page. Here's going to be like a standard sign-in page, so I just don't need to come up with that. Then we have the first form, and this is where after logging in, I make my profile, and you see kind of standard stuff. The specification, again, super detailed. Here we have a picture upload feature, and then of course all the details that have to come with that, and then also instructions on how to have it saved. And each field comes then with error codes and references to what it does, what it is, where it's going to be, how it's specifically applied on this page. Yeah. This is simple links, so I can navigate through this scenario. And we have the dog family, and then we can see the dog family. And then we are then going to be able to start our planning later. Yeah, this is not like particularly super complex as an app, but since I have AI, I can now do so much more than I ever could as a designer, because now I have pushed the project pretty much to a really nice handover to the developers. But I can do one more thing. Because everything is so detailed, I can now build a front-end application that is going to be 98% the real thing. So what you see now is code that I've generated using AI, that is standalone, so I can run it without, I don't have to have Vercel server activated and stuff like that. I can run it directly locally on my computer. It's in harmony with my folders here. So when I click next, it's going to go to the next step in the specification. Each page is nicely saved in different folders. When I start interacting here, it will then save the data in the browser memory. And here you can see to the right, I have activated the console, and I ask it to post in the console when something happens. So when I add my email here, you can see that email is saved. And then when I'm now creating my profile like we saw before, that makes it possible for me then to, let's find the little picture that I created. So now I'm going to have a profile picture of the person who creates the family. And you can see as I'm working here that the JavaScripts are all working. And the picture is also saved in the browser memory. So this is actually usability testable now. And this I did myself without any developer's help. I mean, it's not super fashionable. I mean, I haven't done any artwork yet or any visual design, but still we are quite far ahead in the process. The mom is not in the family anymore. I'm sorry about that, but so now I created my dog family. And next step here is to add the dog, and then I add more people. And then I can start working with the planning of the booking. So the next step from here, in my estimation, is that I don't see myself doing back-end development at this point. Because I think that working with a project to this point is going to be enough of work for me. So what I see here is that I hand this over to a development team who is then running the development agents to turn this into real code. And then the only thing we need to do with this is to replace the function that saves in the browser memory to redirect it to save in the Supabase database that we're going to be using in this case. So that's how this works. What are you thinking when you see this? What comes to mind?
Is this also generated with something like Claude general model?
The code is generated with BMAD method in the same, with cursor. It's in the same environment. I'm not leaving cursor at all to do this. I'm not going to another coding tool. I'm doing the coding right in here. It's actually the UX agent that does the coding for this prototypes. So basically, it's a one-stop shop. I can follow the whole design process here. The only thing I need to do in other places is the visual design, I guess.
I was just thinking, how would this compare if you would put those specifications and the sketches into something like Lovable or something that is more specialized in producing like prototypes or AI applications? How would that differ?
There's already a solution to that. So BMAD method comes with a special prompt generator. So you can make your design process, you can have it saved here, and if you want to do something in Lovable, you just ask it to create the prompts, and then you just drop the prompts and you run from there. What are you thinking, Magnus?
Well, I'm a bit scared.
Are
No,
you
but
scared? Okay, yeah, me too in the beginning. I can be.
No, but I think I'm a developer as well, in the between UX and development. And
That's
I think it's
very
maybe a bit too bloated, too much documentation. As a developer, I want it more simple.
the reason why I want it detailed is because the developer is not supposed to do the code. The developer is supposed to babysit the AI agent that does the code. And in order for the agent to not require an additional layer of instructions, we make it all in the design process. And then the code can be generated. And then your role as the developer is now to look at things like security, integrity of the database, modeling things that is not, in the scope when I'm thinking about families and dogs and buttons and stuff like that. So I think that the divide between the designer and the developer still needs to be there. It's just that as a developer, you don't have to ask 20 questions with the designer each hour when you're working, you see. So
how is the quality of the output? Do you have to adjust a lot, or?
I know that Claude in general does a quite fair job in creating the code. But what we know for sure is that since the code is generated from the single point of truth, which is the specifications, you're not going to have changes upon changes upon changes applied upon that. I made this little website in Lovable, and it was so bad it took a person manual labor to untangle everything and apply everything manually after. So that's a pity.
If the client doesn't agree with this and want to make a change, a specific thing, how would you do that?
Yeah, if there's different remove fields, I ask it to remove fields. I redraw the sketch, and I ask it to say, well, what's different here? And it says, well, 2 fields are gone. Please remove them. If they don't like something like spelling, they can go into GitHub directly and just change it right there. It's particularly really good at changing something. Well, we shouldn't say this, but that. Then I can ask the agent to go through every single document and change everything in the whole code base. And that has happened.
If you make a manual change, it's no risk that it will change it back later.
I haven't seen that. If I change something, the agent will sometimes say, oh, you changed something. There is one place when the context window is really full, when it's like 99.7 full, and I ask it something complicated, then it can start, rearranging things. But it's only on the page where you are, and you can always go back. So sometimes I just kill the agent and start it over, and then it has to read what it has done, and it finds where it was, and it continues like nothing. So it's actually really convenient. When I'm inside and I'm designing and I'm in the zone, I forget about all this, ugly code interface. For me as a designer, it is like mesmerizing to not be alone in the design process. I have a thinking partner. I ask it I'm not sure, should we have it this way and this way? And it's well, it's an interesting case. Here is the argument for that, and here is the argument for B, and here is the argument for C, what do you want to do? And that's super useful. I felt like my career has been very alone as a designer, and now I don't feel alone anymore. It's slightly pathetic to have AI agent as my best friend, but of course we need people as well.
I think it's super interesting and so really inspiring to see this kind of human in the loop design process with AI. I was just wondering, the sketches. Do you even need the sketches? Can't you just let AI also produce them?
From my standpoint, I'm a designer. I want to draw. When I do the sketch, I'm not only just saying sign in button. I actually give visual cues on what to do in the sketch. I haven't found a good way of creating sketches where I can also change, so that AI draws the sketch and then I can change it. What I do sometimes is I ask the AI to generate things. I put it into this drawing software, and I steal the good parts, and then I put it together myself. The method is not setting those boundaries. I can generate something in whatever I want and use that. It takes me 5-10 prompts to convey what's in the sketch. It does far better job when it has an image to generate things from.
Yeah, you can also see it like that you can focus on the parts of the process that you want to focus on.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is it
sure.
the product spec, or is it the code, or the whatever?
Yeah. It also requires me to be more responsible as a designer, because I cannot just place a button there and like hope it sticks. I need to actually be able to explain why that object is there on the screen in the first place, what it's supposed to do, what words it will have, and if it's interactive, what's going to happen in step 1, 2, and 3. And I do a lot of storyboarding. I think the fact that I can leverage my 25 years experience and my skills with sketches, because I still need to show it to the client, right? The most important thing is that it's your design process. Like, this is my design process, and if somebody wants to learn from this and maybe try it, and maybe they will be inspired and make it their own. This is not really the point with the sketch to code thing. The sketch to code thing is because I want designers to be running the world, because the world is going to be unbearable if we don't have designers. If we have technologists and AI experts running the world, it's going to be horrible. Designers are needed because, you know, we put people together. We put people with different needs together. We argue for the users breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we are absolutely needed. So why don't we just take the step forward and become super responsible for the experiences that we make, and that we as designers take a bigger chunk of the cake instead of getting sidelined by toy tools, you know? So that's where I'm coming from here.
Yeah, great rant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. You have been amazing. Please let me know if you have additional thoughts, if you want to try it out, if you need some push to get started. I'll be here and help you guys.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
That was in the call. Hope you have gained new knowledge here. And please stay in touch. And take care.
Forget.
Bye-bye.